Captain Jake Morrison stood at the observation deck of the UES Discovery, watching the massive space station grow larger through the reinforced glass. Kepler station looked like a giant metal flower floating in the darkness of space, with dozens of docking arms reaching out in all directions. Some of those arms held ships he had never seen before, alien vessels with strange curves and glowing parts that hurt his eyes to look at directly. "Captain, we're getting close to our docking port," said Lieutenant Amy Foster from behind him. Her voice carried a slight shake that she tried to hide. Jake didn't blame her. This was the first time any human had come this far from Earth, too. "Meet aliens face to face." Jake turned away from the window and walked back to the bridge. His crew of 25 men and women worked quietly at their stations, checking systems and preparing for what might be the most important meeting in human history. The Discovery was not a warship, but it carried enough weapons to defend itself. If things went wrong, Jake hoped they would not need them. "Status report," Jake said as he sat in his captain's chair. "All systems green, sir," reported Chief Engineer Carlos Rivera. "The translator devices are working perfectly. Dr. Wright tested them again this morning with the alien language samples we received." Jake nodded. The universal translators were humanity's greatest achievement in the past 50 years. Without them, this meeting would be impossible. The aliens called themselves Voidians, and their language sounded like metal scraping against stone, mixed with musical notes that made humans feel uncomfortable. "Where are our diplomatic team members?" Jake asked. "Ms. Carter is in her quarters reviewing the cultural briefings one more time," said Lieutenant Foster. "Colonel Rodriguez is inspecting the security arrangements for the meeting room." Lisa Carter was the best diplomat Earth had to offer. She had solved conflicts between nations that seemed impossible to fix. She spoke 7 human languages fluently, and had spent months learning everything possible about alien cultures from the limited information they had received. If anyone could navigate this meeting successfully, it was Lisa. Colonel Sam Rodriguez was different. He was a soldier who had fought in 3 wars and led peacekeeping missions on 4 continents. Sam understood both warfare and diplomacy, which made him perfect for this mission. The government wanted someone who could recognize threats and opportunities equally well. "Sir, we're receiving a communication from the station," said Communications Officer Janet Hill. "They're giving us final docking instructions." "Put it on speaker," Jake ordered. A mechanical voice filled the bridge, speaking in perfect English through the translator system. "UES Discovery, you are cleared for docking at Arm 7. Follow the guidance lights. Once docked, your delegation will be escorted to Conference Room Alpha. Ambassador Zixthara is waiting for you." Jake felt his stomach tighten. Ambassador Zixthara was the alien they were here to meet. According to the intelligence reports, he was a high-ranking military leader from the Voidian Empire. The Voidians controlled dozens of worlds and were known throughout the galaxy as fierce warriors who never lost a battle. "Acknowledged, Kepler Station," Jake replied. "Beginning docking procedures now." The next 30 minutes passed slowly as the Discovery carefully moved into position. The station's docking clamps grabbed their ship with a loud clang that echoed through the hull. Jake felt the artificial gravity shift slightly as the station systems took over. "Docking complete, Captain," reported Rivera. "All connections secure. We have full life support from the station." "Good. Send word to Ms. Carter and Colonel Rodriguez. It's time." 10 minutes later, Jake met his diplomatic team in the airlock. Lisa Carter wore a dark blue business suit that made her look professional but not threatening. She carried a small briefcase with gifts from Earth and important documents. Her brown hair was pulled back neatly, and she looked calm despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. Colonel Rodriguez wore his dress uniform with all his medals and ribbons. He was a tall man with gray hair and steady eyes that missed nothing. At his side, He carried a ceremonial sword that was more symbolic than practical. The aliens had been told about it in advance as part of human military tradition. "Are you both ready for this?" Jake asked. "As ready as anyone can be for something that has never happened before," Lisa replied with a small smile. "We've practiced every scenario we could think of. Now we just have to trust our training and our instincts." "The aliens requested this meeting," Sam reminded them. "That means they want something from us. We need to find out what that is and whether we can give it to them without compromising Earth's safety." The airlock opened with a soft hiss, and they stepped into Kepler Station for the first time. The corridor beyond was wide and well lit, with walls made of some kind of smooth metal that seemed to glow from within. The air smelled strange. Not bad, just different. Like ozone mixed with something sweet that Jake could not identify. A figure waited for them at the end of the corridor. It was humanoid, but clearly not human. It stood about 7 feet tall and wore a flowing robe that changed colors as it moved. Its face was hidden behind a mask that looked like polished silver. "Welcome to Kepler Station," the figure said through its translator device. "I am Mediator Kintel. I will escort you to the meeting chamber. Please follow me and do not touch anything along the way." They walked through corridors filled with strange sights. Jake saw other aliens through doorways and windows, some that looked like giant insects, others that seemed to be made of liquid metal, and many that defied easy description. None of them looked hostile, but all of them watched the humans with obvious curiosity. "The ambassador is eager to meet you," Kintel said as they walked. "He has traveled far from Voidian space for this meeting. He brings greetings from the High Command and hopes for productive discussions." Lisa nodded politely, but Jake noticed the tension in her shoulders. The way Kintel spoke suggested this was more than a friendly diplomatic chat. The Voidians wanted something specific, and Jake had a feeling it was something humans were not going to like. They reached a large door marked with symbols in dozens of different alien languages. One section was written in English, "Conference Room Alpha." The door slid open silently, revealing a circular room with a table in the center and chairs designed for different alien body types. At the far end of the table sat Ambassador Zix Thara, and Jake felt his breath catch in his throat. The alien was massive, at least 9 feet tall even while sitting down. He had 4 arms, each ending in hands with too many fingers. His skin looked like polished black stone, with veins of silver running through it. 2 large eyes dominated his face, glowing with a soft red light that made Jake think of hot coals. The ambassador stood as they entered, rising to his full impressive height. When he spoke, his voice was deep and resonant, like thunder rolling across distant mountains. "Welcome, humans of Earth," he said. "I am Ambassador Zix Thara of the Voidian Empire. We have much to discuss." Ambassador Zix Thara gestured with one of his 4 massive arms toward the chairs arranged around the table. His movements were fluid and graceful, despite his enormous size. The humans took their seats carefully, with Lisa Carter sitting directly across from the alien ambassador, while Jake and Sam flanked her on either side. "Your species has grown strong very quickly," Zix Thara began, his red eyes fixed on Lisa. "When we first detected signals from your world 50 of your years ago, you had barely left your planet's surface. Now you travel between stars and build stations in deep space. This concerns the Galactic Council." Lisa folded her hands on the table and maintained eye contact with the imposing alien. "We're honored that the Council has taken notice of humanity's progress. We hope to contribute positively to galactic civilization." A sound like grinding metal came from Zix Thara's throat. Jake realized after a moment that the alien was laughing, though it was not a pleasant sound. "Contribute," the ambassador repeated. "Yes, that is exactly what humanity will do. You will contribute to the stability of this galaxy by accepting the generous terms I am about to offer. The alien activated a device on the table, and a holographic display appeared showing star maps and fleet formations. Jake could see hundreds of ship symbols arranged in attack patterns around a blue dot that he recognized as Earth's solar system. The Voidian Empire has positioned 17 battle fleets around your home system, Zixthara continued. Each fleet contains 50 warships equipped with planet-cracking weapons. We have the power to turn your Earth into floating debris within 1 of your hours. Sam shifted in his chair, his hand unconsciously moving toward where his sidearm would normally be. But they had agreed to come to this meeting unarmed as a sign of good faith. Now that decision felt like a mistake. However, the ambassador continued, the High Command recognizes that humans show promise. You are resourceful and adaptable. Therefore, we offer you this choice. Surrender your homeworld peacefully, and we will relocate your population to 3 colony worlds under Voidian protection. Your species will survive, though under our guidance and control. Lisa took a deep breath before responding. Ambassador, we appreciate that you've come so far to make this offer in person. Before we discuss terms, though, I wonder if you could help us understand something about Voidian military doctrine. Zixthara's eyes narrowed slightly. What do you wish to know? Sam leaned forward, speaking for the first time since they had sat down. We're curious about how your forces typically handle planetary conquest. Could you walk us through your standard invasion procedures? The question seemed to please the ambassador. His posture straightened, and pride entered his voice as he began. To explain, Voidian invasion protocol is perfected through centuries of successful campaigns. First, we establish orbital superiority by destroying all defensive satellites and spaced weapons. This typically takes between 2 and 6 of your hours, depending on the target world's technological level. He manipulated the holographic display to show animated battle sequences. Ships fired bright beams at planetary targets, while smaller craft swarmed like angry insects. Next comes atmospheric bombardment, he continued. We target major population centers, military installations, and industrial facilities. The goal is not complete destruction, but rather the elimination of organized resistance. Civilian casualties are regrettable but unavoidable. Jake watched Lisa's face remain perfectly neutral as the alien described the systematic destruction of worlds. Her diplomatic training was serving her well, but he could see the tension in the set of her jaw. After orbital bombardment softens planetary defenses, we deploy ground forces, Zixthara went on. Voidian soldiers are superior to most species in strength, endurance, and tactical capability. We establish control zones around key strategic points and expand outward systematically. Resistance fighters are hunted down and eliminated. The entire process usually takes between 10 and 30 of your days. Fascinating, Lisa said in a tone that revealed nothing. And what happens to the surviving population? Survivors are processed through integration centers, where they learn their new role in Voidian society. Useful skills are identified and preserved. Those who cannot adapt to the new order are relocated to labor colonies. Within 1 generation, most conquered species accept their place in the empire willingly. The ambassador sat back in his chair, clearly satisfied with his explanation. We have used these methods to successfully integrate 43 different species across 17 star systems. The process is efficient and proven. Sam nodded thoughtfully. Thank you for being so detailed, Ambassador. That gives us a much clearer picture of what we're dealing with. Lisa opened her briefcase and pulled out a small device, which she placed on the table. With your permission, I'd like to contact our government for authorization to respond to your generous offer. Of course, Zixthara agreed, but do not take too long. The fleets are already in position, and the High Command grows impatient. Lisa activated the device, and a holographic projection appeared showing the interior of a government building on Earth. A woman in her 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes materialized above the device. Dr. Helen Wright, Director of Xenological Affairs, Lisa announced for the ambassador's benefit. Dr. Wright, we've heard the Voidian Empire's proposal. Dr. Wright nodded gravely. I've been monitoring the transmission. Ambassador Zixthara, thank you for your detailed explanation of Voidian military capabilities. It's very illuminating. You are wise to recognize the futility of resistance, the ambassador replied. Actually, Dr. Wright continued, we have a counterproposal that we think might interest you more than our surrender. Zixthara's 4 eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of confusion that the humans had learned from their cultural briefings. A counterproposal? You are in no position to negotiate. Lisa leaned forward slightly. Ambassador, we'd like to invite your invasion fleets to visit Earth. All of them. Every ship, every soldier, every officer, and crew member. The silence that followed was so complete that Jake could hear the hum of the station's life support systems. Zixthara stared at the humans as if they had suddenly sprouted additional heads. Visit? The ambassador finally managed. I do not understand this word in this context. We want to host your forces on Earth, Sam explained. Not as conquerors, but as honored guests. We've prepared accommodations for millions of visitors. Every member of your invasion fleet would be assigned to human families, schools, and communities. Dr. Wright's hologram nodded enthusiastically. We've been preparing for this possibility ever since we first detected your approach. Hotels have been converted to housing centers. Families have volunteered to host alien visitors. Schools have prepared cultural exchange programs. Zixthara's mouth opened and closed several times without producing sound. In his long military career, he had faced desperate last stands, cunning traps, and even offers of massive tribute to avoid invasion. But no species had ever invited him to bring his entire invasion force as house guests. This is some form of deception, he finally said. A trap. No trap, Lisa assured him. We genuinely want to show you what human civilization has to offer. We believe that understanding between our species is more valuable than conquest. The ambassador stood abruptly, all 4 arms moving in agitated gestures. This is impossible. Species do not invite their conquerors to dinner. It violates every principle of warfare and survival. Maybe that's exactly why it might work, Dr. Wright suggested gently. Ambassador, your intelligence reports must show that humans have a unique approach to conflict resolution. We've turned enemies into allies throughout our history. Zixthara began pacing around the room, his heavy footsteps echoing off the walls. The humans watched him in silence, letting him process this unprecedented situation. Finally, he stopped and turned back to face them. What you suggest is beyond my authority to approve. I must consult with the High Command and the Galactic Council. Of course, Lisa agreed. We understand this is an unusual proposal. Take all the time you need. The ambassador stared at them for a long moment, his red eyes unreadable. Your species continues to surprise me, humans of Earth. I begin to understand why the Council considers you dangerous. Dr. Helen Wright adjusted her position in the holographic projection and cleared her throat. She had spent 30 years studying alien cultures from intercepted communications and scattered intelligence reports. Now she faced the most important presentation of her career. Ambassador Zixthara, may I explain exactly what we're proposing? She asked politely. The massive alien stopped his pacing and returned to his seat, though his forearms continued to move restlessly. Speak, human. I will listen, though I do not understand your purpose. Dr. Wright activated her own holographic display, showing images of Earth's continents and major cities. When we first detected your approach 6 months ago, every government on Earth began preparing, but not for war, Ambassador. We prepared for hospitality. The display showed converted military bases with comfortable barracks, schools with additional classroom space, and families holding welcome signs in multiple languages. Jake noticed that some of the signs attempted to write messages in what looked like Voidian script, though the letters were clearly drawn by human hands. We've converted 12 former military installations into welcome centers, Dr. Wright continued. Each center can house 50,000 visitors comfortably. We've installed universal translators in every room, prepared food that our scientists believe will be suitable for Voidian biology, and organized cultural orientation programs. Zixthara leaned forward, his red eyes fixed on the images. You prepare prison camps. No, Ambassador. We prepare guest facilities. Dr. Wright switched the display to show the interior of one of the centers. The rooms looked like comfortable hotels with beds sized for various alien body types, entertainment systems, and large windows overlooking Earth's landscapes. Every member of your invasion force would have their own private space, access to our global communication network, and freedom to travel anywhere on Earth. Freedom to travel, the ambassador repeated slowly, as if the words made no sense to him. Lisa Carter spoke up from the conference table. Ambassador, perhaps it would help if we explained how this approach has worked in human history. She activated her own device, showing historical footage and documents. Throughout our species development, we faced the same challenge you're presenting now. Different groups with different cultures, different languages, different beliefs, all competing for the same resources. The display showed images of Ellis Island, where millions of immigrants had first entered America. Then it shifted to show modern cities, where people from dozens of different countries lived and worked together. We learned that integration works better than conquest, Lisa explained. When people understand each other's cultures, when they form personal relationships, when they see each other as individuals rather than enemies, conflict becomes much less likely. Sam Rodriguez added his perspective. Ambassador, I've fought in 3 wars and led peacekeeping missions on 4 continents. I've seen what happens when different groups are forced together through violence. It creates resistance that can last for generations. But I've also seen former enemies become close allies when they're given the chance to understand each other. Dr. Wright returned to her presentation, showing statistical data. We've studied conflict resolution across 47 different human cultures over the past 2,000 years. In every case where former enemies were given opportunities for peaceful interaction, cooperation, and mutual benefit, the success rate for long-term peace was above 85%. These statistics mean nothing, Zixthara protested. Humans fighting other humans is not the same as species conquest. Your enemies were still the same species as you. Actually, that's not always true, Dr. Wright replied gently. Many of our historical conflicts were between groups that considered each other to be fundamentally different. Different races, different religions, different ways of thinking about the world. The differences seemed impossible to bridge, just like the differences between humans and Voidians. She showed images of integrated schools, mixed neighborhoods, and businesses where people of different backgrounds work together. What we discovered is that most conflicts are based on fear and misunderstanding. When people actually meet each other, live together, work together, those fears usually disappear. Jake had been listening quietly, but now he spoke up. Ambassador, our government has received over 2 million volunteer applications from families who want to host Voidian visitors. 2 million families willing to open their homes to members of your invasion force. Impossible, Zixthara said flatly. Would you like to see some of the applications? Dr. Wright asked. She switched her display to show actual letters and video messages from human families. A middle-aged couple appeared on screen. standing in front of a modest house with a large yard. "Hi there," the man said, waving at the camera. "I'm Bob Peterson, and this is my wife Mary. We live in Ohio, and we'd love to host a Voidian visitor. We've got a spare bedroom, and Mary makes the best apple pie in 3 counties. We're really excited to learn about your culture." The next video showed a family with 3 children. "We're the Rodriguez family from Texas," said the mother. "Our kids have been studying Voidian language patterns for months. They can't wait to teach someone from your species how to play baseball." Zixthara watched in stunned silence as dozens of similar messages played. Families of all types, from all parts of Earth, expressing genuine enthusiasm about meeting aliens who had come to conquer their world. "These humans know we intend to invade their planet?" he asked. "They know," Dr. Wright confirmed. "We've been completely honest with our population about the situation. Every volunteer family understands that they would be hosting someone who came here as part of an invasion force." "And they still volunteer?" "They volunteer because of it," Lisa explained. "Humans are curious by nature, Ambassador. We want to understand different perspectives, learn new things, experience different ways of thinking. The fact that your people come from such a different culture makes the opportunity more interesting, not more frightening." Sam leaned back in his chair. "Ambassador, let me ask you something. In all your conquests, how many of the defeated populations eventually became truly loyal to the Voidian Empire? Not just obedient because they had no choice, but genuinely loyal?" Zixthara was quiet for a long moment. "Loyalty through conquest is difficult to achieve. Most conquered species require constant monitoring to prevent rebellion." "Exactly," Sam said. "But what if instead of conquered subjects, you had willing allies? People who chose to work with your empire because they respected and understood your culture?" Dr. Wright added more data to her presentation. "Our projections suggest that a cultural exchange program would be far more cost-effective than traditional conquest. No infrastructure destruction to repair, no ongoing resistance, movements to suppress, no need to maintain large occupation forces. And the Voidian Empire would gain access to human innovation, technology, and cultural perspectives that could benefit your entire civilization." "You speak of benefits to the Empire," Zixthara said slowly. "What do humans gain from this arrangement?" "Knowledge," Lisa replied immediately. "Your species has explored the galaxy for centuries. You've seen worlds we can't imagine, developed technologies we're only beginning to understand, created art and literature and philosophy from a completely different perspective. That knowledge would transform human civilization." Dr. Wright nodded enthusiastically. "Ambassador, imagine human creativity combined with Voidian engineering. Imagine human social innovation merged with Voidian organizational systems. Imagine what both our species could accomplish together instead of fighting each other." Zixthara stood again and walked to the room's large window, staring out at the stars. His 4 arms crossed and uncrossed as he processed what he had heard. "In all my years of military service," he said without turning around, "I have never encountered a species that responded to the threat of invasion by offering friendship. Your proposal violates every principle of warfare I have ever learned." "Maybe that's exactly why it might work," Jake suggested quietly. The ambassador turned back to face them, his red eyes brighter than before. "Even if I were to consider such a thing, the decision is not mine alone. The High Command would have to approve any change to invasion protocol. The Galactic Council would need to understand why the Voidian Empire suddenly chose diplomacy over conquest." "We understand," Lisa said. "We're asking you to present our proposal to your superiors. Let them decide whether humanity's approach has merit." Zixthara looked at each of the humans in turn, his expression unreadable. "You are either the most naive species in the galaxy, or the most clever. I am beginning to suspect it might be both. The meeting ended 2 hours later with Ambassador Zixthara promising to consider humanity's proposal. Jake watched the massive alien leave the conference room, his forearms moving in what seemed like agitated gestures. The humans remained seated until the door closed behind him. "Well, that was interesting," Sam said, breaking the silence. "I've never seen an alien look so confused." Lisa packed her materials back into her briefcase. "He's facing something completely outside his experience. Everything we know about Voidian culture suggests they solve problems through strength and dominance. We just offered them a solution based on trust and cooperation." Dr. Wright's hologram flickered slightly as she spoke from Earth. "The real question is whether he can convince his superiors to consider our proposal. The Voidian High Command has built their entire civilization around military conquest." Meanwhile, Ambassador Zixthara strode through the corridors of Kepler Station toward the docking bay where his flagship waited. The Voidian vessel was massive even by galactic standards, bristling with weapons and armor plating. Its dark hull absorbed light rather than reflecting it, making the ship look like a piece of empty space shaped into a weapon. He boarded the ship and immediately called for his senior staff to meet in the war room. Within minutes, his top advisors gathered around the strategic planning table. Sub-Commander Kilrath, his military second-in-command, stood at attention along with Intelligence Officer Mordak and Fleet Coordinator Jexival. "Report, Ambassador." Kilrath requested in the formal tone required by military protocol. Zixthara activated the room's holographic display and began showing the recorded conversation with the humans. His officers watched in growing amazement as the proposal unfolded. "They want to do what?" Mordak interrupted when the recording reached the invitation to visit Earth. "They want to invite our entire invasion force to be their guests," Zixthara repeated. "Every ship, every soldier, every crew member. They have prepared housing, food, and cultural programs for millions of Voidians." Kilrath's expression darkened. "This is obviously a trap, Ambassador. They plan to scatter our forces across their planet and then attack us when we are separated and vulnerable." "That was my first thought as well," Zixthara admitted. "But our intelligence analysis suggests otherwise." He changed the display to show intercepted human communications from the past 6 months. Thousands of messages, official documents, and news reports filled the screen. "Our monitoring stations have been recording human communications since we entered their system," Zixthara explained. "They have been preparing for exactly what they described. Military bases converted to guest facilities, families volunteering to host aliens, schools preparing cultural exchange programs. If this is deception, it involves their entire planetary population." Mordak studied the data carefully. "The preparation is extensive, but humans are clever. They might be planning to use our presence as hostages against our fleet." "To what purpose?" Zixthara asked. "They know we have 17 battle fleets in position. Even if they captured every Voidian on their planet, we could still destroy their world." Jexival, the youngest of his advisors, spoke hesitantly. "Ambassador, what if they are telling the truth? What if they genuinely want to host us as guests?" The room fell silent. In Voidian military tradition, such a suggestion bordered on treason. Warriors did not become guests of their intended victims. "Impossible," Kilrath declared. "No species in galactic history has ever responded to invasion threats with hospitality. It violates every natural law of survival and competition." "Yet the humans have provided detailed plans and evidence," Zixthara pointed out. "Either they are capable of deception on a scale never before seen, or they are genuinely offering what they claim." He activated his communication system and established a secure link to the Galactic Council headquarters. Within moments, The holographic forms of 12 different alien species appeared around the table. Each represented one of the major civilizations that governed galactic politics. Council members, Zixthara began formally. I request emergency consultation regarding the human situation. Counselor Veltar of the Cerebrit Collective, a species known for their analytical abilities, spoke first. Ambassador, we have been monitoring your communications. The human proposal is unprecedented in our records. That is exactly why I need guidance, Zixthara replied. The Voidian Empire has no protocols for handling such a situation. Counselor Fendril of the Aquatic Federation added her perspective. Our historical databases contain records of over 14,000 planetary conquests across 43 different species. Never has a target species responded with an invitation to cultural exchange. The massive form of Counselor Groktar from the Silicon worlds leaned forward. Perhaps this is evidence that humans are more dangerous than we initially assessed. A species that can conceive such a strategy might be capable of threats we cannot imagine. Or, suggested Counselor Linara of the Botanical Collective, they might represent a new form of civilization that we do not understand. Zixthara presented the intelligence data his staff had compiled. Our analysis suggests that human society has developed differently from most galactic civilizations. They have achieved unity not through conquest or genetic similarity, but through voluntary cooperation between diverse groups. Counselor Veltar's large brain pulsed with increased activity as he processed the information. The data indicates that humans have successfully integrated numerous subspecies and cultural groups within their civilization. Their approach to diversity management is indeed unique. But is it a threat or an opportunity? Asked Counselor Zemric of the Crystalline Dominion. That is what we must determine, Zixthara replied. If we proceed with traditional invasion, protocols and the humans resist more effectively than expected, we could face massive casualties. But if we accept their proposal, and it proves to be a trap, we risk losing our entire invasion force. Kilreth interrupted the council session. Ambassador, with respect, we are warriors. We do not become guests of our enemies. The High Command will never approve such a deviation from proven military doctrine. The High Command will approve whatever strategy offers the best chance of success, Zixthara replied sharply. And success means adding human worlds to the Empire with minimal cost and maximum benefit. Counselor Veltar had been analyzing the human data during the discussion. Ambassador, our projection models suggest that the human proposal, if genuine, could indeed be more effective than traditional conquest. A willing alliance would provide greater long-term benefits than a conquered population. But the risks, Mordek protested. If we scatter our forces across their planet and they attack us, we lose our tactical advantage. True, Zixthara acknowledged. But consider the alternative. Human defensive capabilities remain largely unknown. Their rapid technological advancement suggests they may be more dangerous than they appear. A traditional invasion could cost us more ships and personnel than the Empire has lost in the past century. Counselor Fendril offered a compromise suggestion. Perhaps a limited test would be appropriate. Send a small delegation first to evaluate the human proposal before committing major forces. The humans have prepared for millions of visitors, Zixthara pointed out. A small delegation would not provide an adequate test of their intentions or capabilities. Jackseville spoke up again. Ambassador, what if we approached this differently? What if we sent volunteers instead of ordering troops to participate? The suggestion shocked everyone in the room. Volunteer military service was unknown in Voidian culture. Warriors followed orders. They did not choose their assignments. Volunteers? Kilrath repeated in disbelief. Think about it, Jackseville continued. If we ask for volunteers to participate in this cultural exchange, we would learn two important things. First, we would see how humans actually treat Voidian visitors. Second, we would identify which of our own people might be receptive to human ideas. Zixthara considered the proposal carefully. It was unorthodox, but it offered a way to test the human invitation without risking his entire invasion force. The High Command would never approve volunteer assignments for a military operation, Kilrath objected. Then we do not call it a military operation, Zixthara replied. We call it a diplomatic reconnaissance mission. Our volunteers would be gathering intelligence about human society and capabilities. Counselor Veltar's analysis reached a conclusion. Ambassador, the mathematical models suggest that this approach offers the highest probability of success with the lowest risk of catastrophic failure. We recommend proceeding with the human proposal on a limited basis. Zixthara looked around. The room at his advisors and the council members. Very well. I will contact the High Command and request authorization for a diplomatic reconnaissance mission involving volunteer personnel. If the humans prove trustworthy, we can expand the program. If they prove deceptive, we will have learned valuable intelligence about their capabilities. As the council session ended and his advisors departed, Zixthara remained alone in the war room, staring at the star charts showing the position of Earth. For the first time in his military career, he was about to recommend a strategy that had never been tried before. 3 weeks after the meeting at Kepler Station, the first Voidian ships approached Earth. But these were not the warships that had been positioned around the solar system for months. Instead, converted passenger vessels descended through Earth's atmosphere, their hulls painted with bright welcome symbols and their weapon systems disabled as a gesture of peace. Ambassador, Zixthara stood at the observation window of the lead ship as it flew over New York City. Below him, millions of humans lined the streets, holding colorful signs and banners. The translator in his ear worked overtime to convert the shouted greetings into Voidian language. But the enthusiasm needed no translation. Ambassador, we are cleared for landing at the main welcome center, reported the ship's pilot. Ground control says there are over 2 million humans waiting to greet us. Zixthara felt an emotion he had never experienced before during a military operation. Fear, but not of battle or death. Fear of the unknown, of stepping into a situation that had no precedent in galactic history. The ship touched down in what had once been Central Park, now converted into a massive landing area. As the boarding ramp lowered, the sound of human voices rose like a wave. They were singing something, a melody that the universal translator identified as a traditional welcome song. Welcome to Earth, said Mayor Patricia Williams as she stepped forward to greet the ambassador. She was a small woman compared to his massive frame, but she showed no sign of fear or intimidation. Behind her stood dozens of other humans, all smiling and applauding. I am Ambassador Zixthara of the Voidian Empire, he replied formally. I come in response to your invitation. And we're absolutely delighted you accepted, the mayor replied warmly. The Peterson family is so excited to host you. They've been preparing for weeks. An hour later, Zixthara found himself standing in the driveway of a modest house in suburban Ohio. A man named Bob Peterson shook his hand with both of his smaller human hands, while his wife Mary offered him something she called fresh-baked cookies. Their 8-year-old son, Bobby, hid behind his mother's legs, staring up at the alien with wide eyes. Sorry about Bobby, Bob said with a laugh. He's never seen anyone quite so tall before. But he'll warm up to you in no time. Kids always do. Over. The following days, Zixthara experienced things that challenged every assumption he had ever made about conquered populations. Bobby Peterson taught him how to throw a baseball, though the ball looked tiny in the ambassador's massive hands. Mary Peterson shared stories about her grandmother, who had immigrated to America from Ireland with nothing but hope and determination. She always said that strangers are just friends you haven't met yet, Neri explained as they sat on the front porch watching Bobby play in the yard. When we heard that aliens were coming to Earth, we figured the same rule probably applied. At night, Zixthara sent reports back to the Voidian fleet. His messages grew more confused with each passing day. The humans show no signs of fear or deception, he reported to Kilroth. They genuinely seem to enjoy having us here. Bobby Peterson has introduced me to 12 of his school friends, and they all want to learn Voidian words. Mary Peterson cooks enough food for a small army and insists I eat everything she prepares. Similar reports came from Voidian visitors all across Earth. Warriors who had conquered dozens of worlds found themselves attending human universities, learning about art and literature and philosophy. Soldiers who had never questioned orders were invited to town hall meetings where humans debated policy decisions and voted on community issues. Captain Nexval, a veteran of 15 campaigns, sent a particularly troubling report from Tokyo. The humans have no central command structure that I can identify. Different regions have different governments, different laws, different customs. Yet they cooperate on planetary issues without coercion. I do not understand how this is possible. Major Vorthik reported from London with even more confusion. The humans actively seek out different perspectives and opinions. They have institutions called universities where people study ideas that contradict each other. They seem to believe that disagreement makes them stronger rather than weaker. But it was the report from Lieutenant Kindle in Snow Paulo that truly shocked the Voidian command. Sir, I have been assigned to live with a family that includes members of 4 different human ethnic groups. They speak 3 different languages at dinner and follow 2 different religions. Yet they consider themselves a single family unit. When I asked how they resolve conflicts between their different beliefs, the grandmother told me that diversity makes life more interesting. 6 months after the first landing, Zixthara stood before a gathering of the Galactic Council. Representatives from 12 species watched as he prepared to deliver his final report on the human experiment. Honored council members, he began, I must report that humanity has achieved something we believed impossible. They have successfully invaded the Voidian Empire without firing a single shot. Murmurs of confusion rippled through the assembly. Councillor Veltar leaned forward with interest. Explain this statement, Ambassador. Our warriors no longer speak of conquest, Zixthara continued. They speak of partnership. Captain Nexval has requested permission to bring his family to Earth to attend what humans call university. Major Vorthik has submitted a proposal for joint Voidian-human exploration missions. Lieutenant Kindle has asked to extend her stay indefinitely because she wants to learn more about human child-rearing practices. He activated a holographic display showing statistics that stunned the council into silence. 93% of Voidian visitors have requested extended stays on Earth. 78% have asked about bringing their families. 45% have formally applied for what humans call permanent residency status. Councillor Grogtar of the Silicon World spoke first. Are you suggesting that the Voidian Empire is being absorbed into human civilization? I am suggesting that the distinction between absorber and absorbed may not apply in this situation, Zixthara replied. Human families are learning Voidian customs and adopting Voidian technology. Voidian visitors are learning human languages and participating in human cultural activities. The result appears to be a new form of civilization that combines elements of both. He paused and looked directly at each council member in turn. The humans have created something we never considered possible. They have turned conquest into cooperation, invasion into invitation, and enemies into family members. The final image on his display showed a photograph that had become famous across Earth's communication networks. It showed Zixthara sitting at a picnic table with the Peterson family, all of them wearing matching baseball caps and smiling at the camera. Bobby Peterson sat on the ambassador's massive shoulder, grinning with chocolate ice cream smeared across his face. "Honored council members," Zixthara concluded, "I hereby submit my resignation from military service. The Voidian Empire came to conquer Earth, but Earth has conquered us instead. Not through force or deception, but through something far more powerful. They conquered us through kindness." He looked one final time at the council members, many of whom seemed to be struggling to process what they had heard. "I am returning to Earth as its first permanent Voidian resident. Bob Peterson has offered to help me start what he calls a small business. Mary Peterson insists that I need to learn how to make proper apple pie. And Bobby Peterson has informed me that I will be coaching his baseball team next season." As Zixthara's image faded from the council chamber, the assembled representatives sat in stunned silence. Finally, Councillor Valtar spoke. "It appears we have witnessed the emergence of a new form of warfare. Conquest through integration, victory through vulnerability, invasion through invitation." Councillor Linara added thoughtfully, "Perhaps we should consider what this means for galactic civilization. If humans can transform their conquerors into willing allies, what does that suggest about our own assumptions regarding power, conflict, and survival?" The council session ended with more questions than answers, but one thing was certain. Humanity had introduced something entirely new to the galaxy, and nothing would ever be the same again. Back on Earth, Ambassador Zixthara, former military commander and current suburban Ohio resident, was learning how to operate a barbecue grill, while Bobby Peterson explained the finer points of hamburger preparation. The invasion of Earth was complete, and everyone had won.